The Republicans are locking their lips right now. They flat out are saying, hey, if we, matter of fact, I'm gonna go ahead and just use this language. Back in the early 1900s, when they passed a law in Virginia that kept folks who were incarcerated from voting, the quote from the lawmaker was, "We don't want the darkies to vote." That was the quote. The reality is, in 2024, Republican Party, they don't want the darkies to vote. They don't. And matter of fact, and so they love it when black voter participation goes down. They love to hear black people say, "Oh man, I'm not voting." They love it because what it says is everything that we've been doing is frustrating them to no end. And you know what? We're good. And check this out. Check this out. There's a guy named Paul Weyrich. Paul Weyrich is literally the number one person in the Republican Party when it comes to voter suppression. Heritage Center, still very much involved in politics. This is what Paul Weyrich, and again, this is their go-to person to change voting laws. This is what he said in 1980. Listen to this, speaking to, go ahead and go to my iPad, you'll see it right here. This is Paul Weyrich, the founding father of the conservative movement, addressing the religious right in the fall of 1980.
Now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome. Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
Now, maybe some people who are watching miss that because, and I can't reiterate it enough, the person who is speaking, y'all, this is someone who the Republicans to this day, they go to him for advice and counsel on voting laws. Who leads these efforts? The Heritage Foundation. That's who he used to be with. This was and is the agenda of the religious right, also known as white conservative evangelicals, and they are the core supporters of Donald Trump. Listen to what he says, because black people, Latinos, women, young people, Asians, Native Americans, he's talking to you.
Have what I call the goo-goo syndrome. Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
Scott, our leverage goes up when the voting population goes down.
Yeah, but I'm sitting there listening to that, and then the prior posting also, I kept thinking how un-American those lines are. No, Scott. Yeah.
Actually, it's not. No. It's not un-American.
Whoa.
No. Here's why it's not un-American.
I've read the Constitution several times as a lawyer. It's one man, one vote.
No, Scott, hold up. No, Scott. I'm sorry. I know you're a lawyer. One man, one vote.
Get that, baby boy.
Scott, one man, one vote is not in the Constitution.
Oh, well, I tell you what, it should be.
No. Hold up. Here's what the reason. I'm glad you said this, but I gotta correct you. As Alpha gotta correct this Kappa. Let me help you out right here.
Talk to me, come on.
Because you said this is un-American. No, actually, what he described is actually American. when this country was created, the people who were supposed to hold the power were male landowners. Regular, ordinary people were not supposed to hold power. The creation of the Constitution was the creation of landowners. Originally, House members and Senate members were not elected. They were chosen by state legislatures. In fact, in Bush v. Gore, in that decision in 2000, Supreme Court Justice Anthony Scalia literally said that there is no affirmative right to vote in the Constitution. And so this is what Republicans have been leaning on. And so their desire, they know they can't go all the way back to the original intent of the framers. But their desire is, how can we severely limit it to where we then hold the power? And remember, they pushed forward that crazy legal theory that the courts had no control over the legislature, and the legislature could do whatever they wanted, including overturn the popular vote in a state.
But that doesn't make them right.
I agree.
What makes you wrong, let me just tell you, that the Constitution, see, they're originalists. The Constitution is a living document, right? It is the base of our democracy, but there are three branches of government, including the legislature and the judiciary, that have long since interpreted and added to state constitutions, whose states really do control who votes and how many people can vote, as well as the judiciary that has interpreted the Constitution over 200 plus years. And so if it is a living document, then you've got to continue to interpret it. And I can tell you that more people voting, one man, one vote, may not be in the Constitution, but it certainly is in the case law, it's certainly in state constitutions, and it is fundamentally anti-American if you're going to have a democracy and say you want less people to vote. Now, the reason you want less people to vote if you're a Republican is because your ideas and your policies are unpopular. You cannot win with all of America voting. And so you've got to attack the validity of those who would vote. You've got to try to limit them legally, because otherwise you can't win. Think about it. If the Republican Party's policies they had support from the majority of Americans, you wouldn't need to suppress a vote. You'd want more people to vote. The Democrats want more people to vote because their policies and what they stand for certainly outnumber those of the conservative movement. So the conservative movement finds themselves in this vortex whereby they believe what they want to believe. They tell themselves these stories, but there are not enough people who believe in that bullshit. There just isn't. And so when I say it's un-American, it is un-American. The fact that you want less people to vote and you want less people to decide who the leaders are in this country, and that somehow the minority view should run the majority of this country because black people and brown people and others, they don't see us as human beings. They may say, yes, I don't see color, I see another human being, but that's not true. If you want to make America great again, you say where we've been, at one point we were 3/5 of a human being. The Republicans certainly would like to see that. And whether it's police brutality or how Republicans' policies offend black and brown people and poor people, you can see that in the end, at the core, they don't see us as human beings, because if they did, they would fundamentally treat us better. They would treat us like they're equal, right? They would, but they don't. And so the fact of the matter is, one man, one vote is the law of the land. And that's why they are voting. So there's so much voter suppression coming from the Republican Party. It ain't coming from the Democrats, Roland. It's coming from Republicans because they can't win otherwise.
But Rebecca, the reason. Oh,
just tell me I'm right about something.
No, you're wrong. I'm telling you.
Right about that. That was a cogent response.
Scott. Again, this is part of the problem. Part of the problem is that, and I'm trying to walk you through it. This is why we're having the voting battles right now, because the U.S. Constitution does not explicitly state that every person has a right to vote, you've had it placed in some state constitutions. Alicia Reese, who was a former state legislator, who's now a Hamilton County legislator, was trying to get a Bill of Rights in Ohio, Rebecca, that would specifically assert that every Ohioan has an absolute right to vote. If that was placed on the ballot and in the Constitution, that provision alone, Rebecca, would invalidate a lot of these voter suppression efforts. And so, hold on, Scott.
Roland, before you go to her.
Scott, hold on. Scott, hold on. So, Scott, hold on. So, when you study the Republican playbook, Rebecca, what they are doing is they start with the premise because there is no affirmative right to vote in the U.S. Constitution, and because where Scott is correct, the vote falls to the states, their whole deal is we now get to decide whatever we want when it comes to voting, which is why they oppose the John Lewis voting rights bill and the federal bills, because they say that is federal overreach. People watching need to understand the basis of their argument and what they're doing and why they're doing it. And it's based upon there is no affirmative right to vote in the Constitution. Rebecca.
So the concept of voting is in the Constitution. However, the who, what, when, where, why, and how is not laid out in the Constitution. And I think from the Republican viewpoint, their viewpoint is, hey, we're not taking away the idea of voting. We're just restricting and determining who gets to vote, when do they get to vote, how do they get to vote, and then the different layers, right? And then we've also seen that the federal government has stepped in and said, hey, we regulate federal elections. So what you all do with state and local elections, that's up to the state. But when it comes to federal elections, when it comes to determining who is eligible to vote in federal elections, that is the federal government, full stop. So now we're here. So if we actually want to enshrine the right to vote, the affirmative right to vote, then yes, it needs to be added to the Constitution. Otherwise, we're going to have this every generation pendulum swinging back and forth in court cases, depending on what type of court we currently have. And that's going to further continue to restrict the right to vote or constrict the right to vote, or it's going to continue to expand the right to vote, which is also why we're here. And we're now seeing Republicans are going state by state, and they're trying to change who gets to vote on a fundamental level. But the only particular elements of the ballot box that state by state can be impacted is state and local elections.
Fanbase is pioneering a new era of social media for the creator economy. This next generation social media app with over 600,000 users is raising $17 million, and now is your chance to invest. For details on how to invest, visit startengine.com/fanbase or scan the QR code. Another way we're giving you the freedom to be you without limits.